The ship that dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Velaris Station was, by every measure the galaxy used, ugly. Dock Master Threlix clicked his mandibles in disgust as he studied the vessel. On his scanner screen, he had served at Velaris Station for 40 cycles and had seen ships from every corner of known space. Beautiful Tessari crystal cruisers that caught starlight like frozen music. Massive Krithx warships covered in weapons and intimidation. Sleek Ordani research vessels designed with mathematical perfection. This ship looked like someone had welded together spare parts from a junkyard and somehow convinced them to fly. It was squat and uneven. One side bulged out further than the other. Pipes and cables ran along the outside of the hull where everyone could see them. The metal plates that made up its skin showed visible welding lines, as if the builders had not bothered to smooth them out. The whole thing was painted in a dull gray color that reminded Threlix of the garbage scows that collected waste from the station. "This is the HSS Perseverance requesting docking permission," came a voice over the communication channel. The speaker sounded calm and professional, which somehow made the ugly ship even more confusing. Threlix checked his records. Humanity, the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had made contact with the galaxy only 15 cycles ago and had kept mostly to themselves. Since then, this was their first official diplomatic visit to Velaris Station, the largest trade hub in the sector. "Perseverance, you are cleared for Dock 17, Threlix replied. Dock 17 was located in the maintenance section of the station. It was where they put garbage scows and broken-down freighters waiting for repairs. Threlix felt a small twist of guilt, but only a small one. The humans should have sent a proper ship if they wanted to be taken seriously. The ugly vessel moved toward its assigned dock with surprising grace. Despite its appearance, it handled well in space. Threlix noticed something else strange as it passed closer to the station's sensors. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. Every vessel produced energy signatures. Engines gave off heat. Power systems leaked radiation. Life support created detectable patterns. But the human ship registered almost nothing on his scanners. It was like watching a ghost drift through space. Threlix shook his head and dismissed the oddity. Primitive technology probably just meant primitive energy output. Nothing to think about twice. Inside the Perseverance, Ambassador Chen Weilin straightened her formal jacket and prepared to meet the galaxy. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen much of humanity's difficult history. She had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, first on Earth and then among the stars. Nothing surprised her anymore. "The dock they assigned us is in the garbage section," her aide reported. A young man named James, who still had enough youth to feel insulted by such things. "I know," Chen replied calmly. "Should we request a different berth? One more appropriate for a diplomatic vessel?" Chen smiled. "No, this dock is perfect." James looked confused but said nothing. He had learned that the ambassador usually had reasons for things that only became clear later. The airlock opened, and Ambassador Chen stepped onto Velaris Station for the first time. The air smelled of 100 different atmospheres mixed together, filtered and recycled to be breathable for most oxygen-dependent species. The corridors were wide and tall, built to accommodate beings of many sizes. Aliens of dozens of species moved past, most of them ignoring the small human delegation. Most, but not all. A group of Krithx warriors stood near the entrance to the diplomatic quarter. They were tall beings, nearly 3 meters high, with forearms and skin like polished bronze. Their faces were hard and angular, built for intimidation. They wore ceremonial armor that probably cost more than most planetary budgets. The largest of them, marked with the symbols of high rank, looked at Ambassador Chen and made a sound that might have been laughter. "So these are the humans," he said loudly, speaking the common trade language that most species used. "I wondered what kind of beings would arrive in such a vessel. Now I understand. They match their ship perfectly." The other Krithx laughed. Several nearby aliens of other species turned to watch the entertainment. Ambassador Chen walked toward the Krithx commander without hesitation. She stopped before him and looked up at his towering form with no fear in her eyes. "High Commander Vosrith, I presume," she said. "Your reputation precedes you. I am Ambassador Chen Weilin of Earth. It is a pleasure to meet you." Vosrath seemed surprised that she knew his name. He recovered quickly and looked down at her with obvious contempt. "You know me, little human. Good. Then you know that the Krithx Dominion is the greatest military power in this sector, perhaps in the entire galaxy." He gestured toward the viewport, where his flagship hung in space, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, its hull decorated with the trophies of countless victories. "That is what a proper warship looks like, not whatever sad collection of scrap you arrived in. The Perseverance serves its purpose." Chen replied mildly. "Its purpose as what? A garbage transport?" Vosrath laughed again. "I am told this is your people's first diplomatic mission to Velaris. Allow me to give you advice, Ambassador. Go home, build real ships. Return in a century when you have something worthy of the galaxy's attention. Until then, you waste everyone's time." Chen smiled. It was a polite smile, the kind diplomats learn to wear like armor. "Thank you for your counsel, High Commander. I will keep it in mind." She walked past him toward the diplomatic quarter. Her delegation followed in silence. None of them responded to the laughter that followed them down the corridor. The welcome reception that evening was held in the Grand Observation Hall, a massive chamber with transparent walls that offered a stunning view of the surrounding space. Ships from dozens of species hung in the darkness outside, a display of galactic wealth and power. Ambassador Chen stood near the refreshment tables, speaking quietly with representatives from smaller species who had nothing to prove. The Valorian hosts, insectoid beings who valued commerce above all else, had greeted her with perfect professional courtesy, but she noticed how their compound eyes kept drifting toward the viewport, toward the elegant ships outside. "Ambassador Chen," she turned to find a Tassari diplomat approaching. The Tassari were considered the most beautiful species in known space, tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors like living opals and movements that seemed more like dance than walking. This one wore robes that probably cost more than the Perseverance's official budget. "I am Curator Lysanthus," the Tassari said in a voice like singing. "I wish to express my condolences." "Condolences?" Chen asked. "Has someone died?" "Your ship." Lysanthus made a graceful gesture of sympathy. "I saw it as I arrived. Such a tragic thing. I hope your people were not too attached to it. The Perseverance is quite functional." "I assure you." Of course." The Tassari's colors shifted to something that might have been pity. "It is charming, really, in a primitive way. Like a child's drawing. One must appreciate the effort, if not the result. Perhaps your species simply lacks the aesthetic sensitivity that comes with age. Give it a few thousand years. You may develop taste." Chen maintained her polite smile. "You are too kind." Lysanthus drifted away, apparently satisfied with having dispensed wisdom to the lesser species. James appeared at Chen's elbow, his face tight with controlled anger. "How do you stand this?" he whispered. "Practice," Chen replied. "They treat us like we're nothing, like we're children playing at being a real civilization." "Yes, they do. Doesn't it bother you?" Chen was quiet for a moment, watching the alien diplomats move through the reception hall. She saw the Krithx showing off their military medals. She saw the Tassari displaying their artistic achievements. She saw a dozen species competing to prove their worth. "James," she said softly, "humanity spent 2 centuries watching this galaxy before we made contact. We observed from the shadows. We learned their languages, their histories, their wars. We saw the Krithx conquer weaker species and take their resources. We saw the Tassari look down on anyone who didn't meet their standards of beauty. We saw empires rise and fall, usually on mountains of bodies. So you're saying we should have stayed hidden?" "No, I'm saying we came here with open eyes." Chen turned to look at her young aide. "They see a primitive species in a garbage ship. Let them. Underestimation is a gift, James, one we have cultivated very carefully." Before James could ask what she meant, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. The pleasant music of the reception died. The lights flickered to emergency red. Alien voices rose in sudden fear. Threlix's voice came over the station's communication system, stripped of all his earlier contempt, filled now only with terror. "Attention all vessels and delegates. Long-range sensors have detected an incoming fleet. Skarn hegemony signatures. 47 warships. They will arrive within 6 hours. The room erupted in panic. The Skarn were conquerors, destroyers, the terror of the Outer Rim. They had glass-bombed a dozen worlds. They took no prisoners and accepted no surrender. Ambassador Chen stood calmly in the chaos. She touched the communication device hidden in her ear. "Captain Torres," she said quietly, "wake up the ship, deepen the Perseverance. The grand observation hall had transformed from a place of celebration to a scene of pure terror. In a matter of seconds, diplomats of every species pushed toward the exits, their careful dignity forgotten. Servants dropped trays of refreshments as they fled. The Valorian hosts tried to maintain order, but their clicking voices were lost in the chaos. Through the transparent walls, Ambassador Chen could see ships already undocking from the station, their captains desperate to escape before the Skarn fleet arrived. High Commander Vosrith stood in the center of the room, barking orders into his communication device. His bronze face had lost some of its arrogant color. Even the mighty Kritheks feared the Skarn. "All Kritheks vessels, emergency power to engines," he commanded. "We return to Dominion space immediately. Let the station fend for itself." Chen walked toward him, moving against the flow of fleeing aliens. "High Commander, you have 12 warships in this system. Surely you intend to help defend the station?" Vosrith looked down at her as if she had grown a second head. "Defend against 47 Skarn vessels? Do you know nothing of war, human?" He made a gesture of dismissal. "The Skarn do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. They burn worlds to glass and move on to the next conquest. There is no defending against them. There is only running. The station has 30,000 civilians aboard. Then they should have evacuated faster." Vosrith pushed past her, heading for the exit. He paused and looked back with something that might have been pity. "Take your garbage ship and flee, Ambassador. You have no part in what is coming. This is a matter for real powers." Chen watched him go. Around her, the hall continued to empty. The beautiful decorations swayed in the wind from so many bodies rushing past. Outside the viewports, more ships were leaving, their engines bright against the darkness. James appeared at her side. "Ambassador, our shuttle is ready. We can be back aboard the Perseverance in 10 minutes. Good. Let's go." They moved through the chaos of the station's corridors. Emergency lights painted everything in shades of red. Aliens of every description hurried past, carrying whatever they could grab. Children of several species cried in confusion, not understanding why their parents were so afraid. Chen stopped when she saw a small group huddled near an airlock. They were Velith, a species she recognized from humanity's observation files. Small beings, barely a meter tall, with soft features and wide eyes. The Velith had no military. They were traders and craftspeople, known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful textiles and gentle nature. An elderly Velith was trying to comfort a group of young ones, while another adult argued desperately. With a Kritheks soldier blocking the airlock, "Please," the adult Velith begged. "We just need passage to any ship leaving the station. We can pay. We have credits." The Kritheks soldier laughed. "Credits mean nothing now, little one. This airlock leads to Commander Vosrith's shuttle. Only Kritheks are permitted, but the children are not my concern." The soldier raised one of his forearms in warning. "Leave now, or I will remove you myself." Chen approached before James could stop her. "Soldier, this airlock leads to the diplomatic shuttle bay. All species have equal access according to station law." The Kritheks turned his cold eyes on her. "Station law means nothing when the Skarn come. Only strength matters now." He studied her human uniform with contempt. "You should hurry to your garbage ship, human. Perhaps if you are lucky, the Skarn will think it too worthless to destroy. The Velith children will come with us," Chen said calmly. "What? We have room on our vessel. We will take them to safety." The adult Velith looked at Chen with amazement. The elderly one began to weep with relief, clutching the small ones closer. "You would do this?" the adult asked. "We have nothing to offer you. Our world is poor. Our people have no influence. You don't need to offer anything," Chen replied. "Come with us." The Kritheks soldier shook his head in disgust. "Foolish, sentimental. This is why humanity will never be a real power in this galaxy. You waste time on the weak instead of saving yourselves." Chen looked at him with an expression that made the soldier step back without understanding why. There was something in her eyes that did not match her kind words and gentle manner. Something old and cold and very, very patient. "We should go," she said softly. They moved through the station toward Dock 17. The Velith children held hands in a line, frightened but trusting the strange humans who had offered them rescue. The elderly Velith walked beside Chen, struggling to keep up. "Why?" the old one asked. "Why help us? You do not know us. You gain nothing from our survival." Chen smiled gently. "My people learned long ago that kindness is never wasted. Even when the universe seems darkest, how we treat each other matters. Perhaps especially then. Your people are strange," the Velith said. "But strange in a way I think I like." They reached the Perseverance as the station's alarms grew more urgent. The Skarn fleet had dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They would reach weapon range in less than 2 hours. Captain Maria Torres met them at the airlock. She was a tall woman with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a uniform that seemed too simple, too plain, too unremarkable, just like the ship she commanded. "Ambassador, we have 17 additional refugees aboard, mostly smaller species, who couldn't find passage on the military vessels." "Good. Take the Velith to the passenger quarters." Chen paused. "And begin wake-up procedures." Torres nodded without surprise. They had always known this moment would come eventually. They had trained for it, prepared for it, hoped it would never happen, but prepared anyway. "Full activation will take 90 minutes, Torres said. "We have 2 hours. Make it work." Chen moved through the Perseverance toward the bridge, passing crew members who were already transforming from their diplomatic roles into something else entirely. Engineers opened panels that weren't supposed to exist. Weapons officers took stations that the ship's official blueprints didn't show. Navigation plotted courses using systems that the galaxy didn't know humanity possessed. On the bridge, Chen stood before the main view screen. It showed the space around Velaris Station, now mostly empty of ships. A few stragglers were still fleeing, their engines straining for maximum speed. The Krithx fleet had already vanished into faster-than-light travel, running home to safety. "Status of remaining vessels?" Chen asked. 12 merchant ships too damaged or slow to flee. 7 patrol craft from various species who have chosen to stay and fight. The station's defensive systems are active but limited. Torres appeared at her side. "It won't be enough. Not even close. No, it won't. The galaxy will learn what we are today." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Through the viewport, she could see the stars' countless points of light in the darkness, each one a sun with worlds orbiting around it. Worlds with people who lived and loved and dreamed. Worlds that the Skarn had burned to glass. "Yes," she said finally. "I suppose they will." The Skarn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of predators, arriving for a kill. 47 warships, each 1 kilometers long, covered in weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to encircle the station from every angle. The lead vessel was the largest, a dreadnought that made even the Krithx flagship look small. It bore the markings of Supreme Commander Kathvoran, the most feared military leader in Skarn history. He had conquered 11 systems and burned 23 worlds. He had never known defeat. His voice came across all communication channels, broadcast to every ship and station in the system. "Attention, Velaris Station. You have been selected for incorporation into the Skarn hegemony. You have 2 options. Total surrender, including all personnel, resources, and technology, or total destruction. You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Silence fell across the system. On the station, the remaining defenders prepared for death. On the merchant ships, captains held their families and prayed to gods that probably weren't listening. On the patrol craft, brave officers checked their weapons and knew they would die fighting against impossible odds. On the Perseverance, Ambassador Chen studied the Skarn fleet on her view screen. 47 warships, thousands of weapons, the power to burn worlds. "Activation status?" she asked. 80% complete. 15 minutes to full power. Chen nodded. She reached for the communication controls. It was time for the galaxy to meet the real humanity. But before she could speak, the Skarn commander noticed the ugly little ship drifting among the defenders. His laugh came across all channels. "What is this? A garbage scow has come to fight?" The mockery in his voice was absolute. "Destroy it first. Let the others see what happens to those foolish enough to stand against the hegemony." 3 Skarn destroyers broke formation and turned toward the Perseverance, their weapons powered up, their targeting systems locked on. Ambassador Chen smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile. It was something else entirely. "Captain Torres, they're about to fire on us." "Yes, Ambassador, let them." The Skarn destroyers opened fire. Missiles and energy beams screamed across space toward the ugly little human ship, and the galaxy began to change. The missiles struck the Perseverance in a storm of fire and light. Every alien watching expected to see the ugly human ship torn apart. Explosions bloomed against its hull, bright enough to hurt the eyes. Energy beams carved through space where the vessel floated. The combined firepower of 3 Skarn destroyers was enough to crack a moon. When the light faded, the Perseverance was still there. Not damaged, not burning, not even scratched. It hung in space exactly where it had been, as if the most devastating attack the Skarn could launch was nothing more than a mild inconvenience. Supreme Commander Keth Voren leaned forward in his command chair, his scaled face twisted in confusion. "What on the bridge of the Perseverance?" Captain Torres checked her displays. Gravitational diffusion field held at 92% efficiency. All weapon impacts redirected to subspace. No damage to any system. Ambassador Chen nodded. "That's enough hiding. Show them who we are." Torres smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "With pleasure. All stations, begin full activation." "Drop the mask." Throughout the ship, things began to change. The exposed pipes that ran along the outer hull cracked open. They had never been pipes at all. They were projector nodes for weapon systems that the galaxy had never imagined. The visible welding seams split apart as hidden compartments opened, revealing row after row of railgun batteries designed by minds that had studied to centuries of galactic warfare and improved upon every design. The asymmetrical hull began to shift. Sections that had seemed bulky and awkward rotated into new positions, locking into place with perfect precision. What had looked like poor engineering was actually deliberate misdirection. Components designed to appear crude while hiding their true function. And then the real transformation began. The Perseverance had always been larger than it appeared. Most of its mass existed in compressed space storage, a technology humanity had developed in secret and never shared with anyone. Now that hidden mass began to unfold into normal space. The ship grew. It doubled in size, then doubled again. Armor plates 3 meters thick slid into place, covering the hull in protection that could withstand direct nuclear strikes. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments, not just the railguns, but missile launchers, energy projectors, point defense networks, and things that had no names in any alien language. The squat, ugly garbage scow stretched and expanded until it hung in space as a dreadnought, 3 times larger than any Skarn vessel. Dark gray armor reflecting no light, weapons covering every surface, completely silent, giving off no energy signature that enemy sensors could track. This was the Earth dreadnought Perseverance. This was what humanity had been building for 200 years while they watched and waited and prepared. On the Skarn flagship, Supreme Commander Keth Voren stared at his view screen in disbelief. His tactical officers were shouting readings that made no sense. A ship could not transform like that. A ship could not hide that much mass. A ship could not appear from nowhere with no warning. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." Ambassador Chen's voice came across all communication channels, calm and steady, without any hint of fear or anger. "This is the Earth dreadnought Perseverance to the Skarn fleet. You fired first. We will fire last. You have one chance to withdraw from this system. Take it." Keth Voren's shock transformed into rage. He had conquered 23 worlds. He had never been threatened by prey, and he would not start today. "All ships, attack. Destroy that vessel. I want its hull broken and its crew dead." The Skarn fleet moved as one. 47 warships turned toward the Perseverance, their weapons powering up to maximum. Thousands of missiles launched. Hundreds of energy beams blazed across space. The combined firepower of an empire focused on a single target. The Perseverance did not run. It did not retreat. It moved forward, directly into the storm of weapons fire. And then it began to shoot back. The railguns fired first. They used technology that the Kritheks had dismissed, that the Tessari had ignored, that the Skarn had never bothered to develop. Simple metal projectiles accelerated to near the speed of light by magnetic fields. No energy signature to track, no defense to stop them. Just physics, applied with perfect precision. The first Skarn destroyer came apart as a railgun round punched through its engine section. The second lost its weapon arrays to a spread of fire that hit 12 targets simultaneously. The third tried to evade, but the Perseverance's targeting systems thought faster than any Skarn computer could calculate. But the most terrifying thing was not the destruction. It was the precision. Every shot from the human dreadnought struck exactly where it was aimed. Engines were cored out, leaving ships dead in space but intact. Weapon systems were amputated, removing threats without destroying the vessels that carried them. Command bridges were isolated by careful strikes that cut power without killing the crews inside. The Perseverance was not trying to kill. It was trying to disable. Captain Torres stood at her tactical station, her hands moving across controls that responded to thought as much as touch. Primary weapons at full efficiency, switching to secondary targets. Skarn fleet losing cohesion. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 47 Skarn warships floated dead in space. Their engines were gone. Their weapons were destroyed. Their crews were alive, but helpless, trapped in vessels that could no longer fight or flee. Not a single Skarn had died. On Velera Station, the remaining defenders watched in stunned silence. The patrol craft crews had expected to die heroes. The merchant captains had expected to see their families burned to ash. Instead, they had witnessed something beyond their understanding. The most feared fleet in the sector had been defeated in minutes. By one ship, one human ship. Supreme Commander Kethvorin sat in his darkened bridge, surrounded by officers who had no idea what to do. Emergency lights flickered. Backup life support hummed. Through the cracked view screen, he could see the Perseverance hanging in space, silent and dark and absolutely terrifying. A communication request blinked on his console. He answered it. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on his screen. She looked exactly as she had at the diplomatic reception, calm, polite, almost grandmotherly, as if she had not just destroyed his fleet and ended his career. "Supreme Commander," she said, "I hope you're unharmed." Kethvorin wanted to rage at her. He wanted to threaten and bluster and promise revenge. But he was old enough and wise enough to know when he had been completely and utterly defeated. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to understand something." Chen's eyes were kind but serious. Humanity spent centuries watching this galaxy. We saw what the Skarn do to conquered worlds. We saw the burning and the death and the endless conquest. We could have revealed ourselves at any time. We could have used our technology to conquer, just as you do. Why didn't you? Because we made a choice. Chen paused. We watched you and the Kritheks and a dozen other empires destroy each other over and over again. We saw the cycle of violence that never ends, and we decided that we would not become part of it. We built ships like the Perseverance not to conquer, but to ensure that we would never be victims, and to break the cycle when we could. Kethvorin shook his head slowly. You could have destroyed us. Every ship, every crew. You had the power, yes, but you didn't. You disabled us instead. You left us alive. His scaled face twisted with confusion. Why? Ambassador Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Because we decided that's who we wanted to be. Power without mercy is just cruelty with better weapons. We have the ability to end lives. We choose not to. That choice is what makes us human. She leaned forward slightly. You get to live, Supreme Commander. You and every member of your fleet. Not because you deserve it, but because we believe that everyone deserves a chance to become something better than they were. Kethvorin stared at her. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever spared him. No one had ever offered mercy instead of death. He did not know how to respond to such a thing. What happens now? He asked finally. Now, you take your fleet home. You tell the hegemony what happened here. You tell them that humanity is not prey to be hunted. And maybe, if you're wise, you consider whether conquest is really the only way to live." She paused. "We'll be watching, Supreme Commander. We've always been watching. And we will be here, quiet and patient, ready to act if necessary. Not to conquer, to protect. That's the choice we made." The communication ended. Keth Voren sat in silence, staring at the dark screen. Outside, rescue ships from Velaris Station were beginning to approach the disabled Skarn fleet, ready to help with repairs, ready to offer aid to the very enemies who had come to destroy them. Because the humans had asked them to. The Supreme Commander had conquered worlds. He had burned civilizations to ash. He had believed that power was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Today, he had learned differently, and he was not sure what to do with that knowledge. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Ambassador Chen watched the rescue operations begin. Captain Torres stood beside her, still alert, still ready for any threat. "You know this changes everything," Torres said quietly. "Every species in the sector will know what we are now. What we can do." Chen nodded. "Yes, they'll fear us. Some will. Others might learn from this. Might see that there's enough news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass." Within hours of the battle, every communication network carried the story. Every intelligence service scrambled for information. Every military command held emergency meetings to discuss what had happened at Velaris Station. A single human ship had defeated 47 Skarn warships in 11 minutes, without killing a single enemy crew member. The galaxy had discovered something terrifying. They had never known humanity at all. On the Tessari homeworld, Curator Lysantha stood before the High Council, her opal skin shifting to colors of deep worry. The council chamber was beautiful, as all Tessari things were beautiful. But no one noticed the artistry today. "Our analysts have reviewed the battle recordings," Lysanthus reported. "The human vessel used technologies we do not fully understand. The gravitational diffusion field alone would require generations of research for us to replicate. And their compressed space storage technology," she paused. "We believed such things were theoretically impossible." The eldest counselor, a being whose colors had faded to silver with age, spoke slowly. "For 15 cycles, we welcomed humans to our stations and embassies. We allowed them to observe our technology, our culture, our military capabilities. We treated them as primitives who needed our guidance." "Yes, High Counselor. And the entire time, they were watching us, learning our weaknesses, building weapons we cannot match." The ancient Tessari's colors darkened. "We have been fools." Similar conversations happened across known space. The Oridani archivists, famous for their complete historical records, discovered that their files on humanity were almost entirely wrong. The species they had dismissed as young and insignificant had apparently been operating in the galaxy for 2 centuries. Before making official contact, the questions multiplied. How many human ships were there? Where were they hidden? What else had humanity developed that no one knew about? Fear spread almost as quickly as the news. On Velaris Station, Ambassador Chen faced a different kind of challenge. The diplomatic corridor, nearly empty during the Skarn attack, was now crowded with representatives desperate for answers. Ambassador Chen, the Valorian trade master, approached with careful respect that had not existed before the battle. "The Station Council wishes to extend formal gratitude for your intervention. You saved 30,000 lives. We did what any decent people would do," Chen replied. "With respect, Ambassador, that is not true. The Kritheks fled. The Tessari sent condolences, but no assistance. Many species would have used this moment to negotiate for power. But you asked for nothing. You simply helped." The Valorian's compound eyes studied her. "This is not normal." Chen smiled slightly. "Perhaps it should be." The conversations continued throughout the day. Species who had mocked humanity now sought alliance. Powers who had ignored Earth now sent urgent diplomatic requests. Everyone wanted to understand the species that had hidden in plain sight for so long. High Commander Vosrath was notably absent. His fleet had returned from its cowardly retreat to find the situation completely changed. The Kritheks, supposedly the greatest military power in the sector, had run from an enemy that humanity had defeated without trying. The embarrassment was total. On the 3rd day after the battle, Vosrath finally appeared at Chen's temporary office. He came alone, without his usual guards and servants. His bronze face showed something Chen had never seen before: uncertainty. "Ambassador," he said, the words stiff and difficult for him. "I request a private audience." Chen gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Of course, High Commander. Please sit." Vosroth sat awkwardly, his large frame uncomfortable in the too small chair. For a moment, he was silent, struggling with words that did not come easily to someone who usually communicated through commands and threats. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. Chen raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I mocked your ship. I dismissed your species as primitives unworthy of attention. I advised you to leave the station before you embarrassed yourselves." Vosroth's hands clenched into fists. "And then I fled when danger came. I abandoned the station and everyone on it because I was afraid. You did, while you stayed, while you fought, while you saved lives that I had written off as lost." The Kritheks looked at her with something approaching desperation. How did you hide such power? How did you build such things without anyone knowing?" "Patience," Chen replied, "and careful observation. But why hide it all? With ships like the Perseverance, you could have conquered the sector. You could have made the Kritheks kneel. You could have built an empire greater than any in history." Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "High Commander, humanity's history is filled with empires, great powers that rose and fell, usually destroying everything around them in the process. We learned from that history. We learned that conquest creates enemies, that oppression breeds rebellion, that empires built on force always crumble in the end." She leaned forward. "When we reached the stars and found that the galaxy was just like our own past species conquering species, empires rising and falling, the same cycle of violence repeated forever, we made a choice. We would not join that cycle. We would prepare to defend ourselves, yes, but we would not become conquerors. That makes no sense," Vosroth protested. "Power exists to be used, to dominate, to prove strength, does it?" Chen asked. "The Skarn had power. They used it to burn worlds and kill millions. And in 11 minutes, all that power meant nothing. They lost not because we were stronger, but because strength alone is not enough." She sat back in her chair. "We spared the Skarn because we wanted to show the galaxy that there's another way, that you can have overwhelming force and still choose mercy, that victory doesn't have to mean death, that the cycle can be broken." Vosroth stared at her. His world view, built over decades of military service, was crumbling before her words. "The Kritheks will never accept this," he said. "My people believe in strength above all else. They will see humanity's mercy as weakness, will they? Or will some of them start to wonder if there's a better path?" Chen smiled. "Change doesn't happen overnight, High Commander. It happens one mind at a time, one question at a time, one moment of doubt that grows into something larger." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the ships moving around the station. "Humanity could have stayed hidden forever. We could have watched the galaxy tear itself apart from the safety of the shadows. But we realized that wasn't enough. If we truly believed in a better way, we had to demonstrate it. We had to step into the light and show what's possible, even knowing the risks, even knowing that revealing yourselves could make you targets, especially knowing that." Chen turned back to face him. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, High Commander. It's doing what's right despite the fear. It's choosing to act when staying hidden would be easier." Vosroth sat in silence for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more thoughtful than she had ever heard from him. "I have commanded warships for 30 cycles. I have won battles that history will remember. I believe that made me brave." He looked at his own hands, massive and strong, capable of breaking bones with ease. "But I ran when the Skarn came. I abandoned those I should have protected. And you, with your garbage ship and your gentle words, you stayed and fought." He stood slowly, straightening to his full impressive height. "I don't know if I can change my people, Ambassador. I don't know if the Kritheks can learn what you're trying to teach. But I can change myself, and perhaps that is a start." Chen extended her hand, a human gesture of respect and agreement. Vosroth looked at it for a moment, then carefully wrapped one of his own massive hands around it. "Perhaps it is," Chen agreed. As Vosroth left, James entered with reports from the Perseverance. The young aide had changed since the battle. The anger and frustration that had marked him before had faded, replaced by something steadier. Ambassador, we've received over 100 alliance requests from various species. The Velith people have formally declared humanity friends of the heart, which is apparently their highest honor. And he paused, checking his notes. Supreme Commander Keth Voren has requested a personal meeting. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Skarn commander wants to talk? Apparently. His message says he has something important to discuss. Something about breaking cycles. Chen smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. Schedule the meeting for tomorrow. And James, make sure we serve tea. It's traditional on Earth to share tea when beginning important conversations. Yes, Ambassador. James hesitated. Do you really think this will work? That we can change how the galaxy operates? Chen considered the question carefully. Outside the window, ships from dozens of species moved through the darkness. Some were warships. Some were merchant vessels. Some carried refugees looking for safe harbor. I don't know, she admitted. Change is slow and difficult and often incomplete. Some species will never accept what we're trying to teach. Some will try to destroy us for challenging their power. We may fail completely. She turned to face her young aide. But we have to try, James. That's what it means to be human. We see darkness and we light candles anyway. 3 months had passed since the battle at Velaris Station, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what it meant. Ambassador Chen stood on the observation deck of the Perseverance, watching the stars turn slowly outside the viewport. The ship had returned to its disguise, once again looking like nothing more than an ugly garbage scow drifting through space. Only now, everyone knew what hid beneath that harmless appearance. Captain Torres approached with a data pad. The latest intelligence reports, Ambassador. The Skarn hegemony has withdrawn from for systems along the outer rim. Their expansion has completely stopped, and their internal politics, divided. Supreme Commander Keth Voren has become a controversial figure. He's advocating for what he calls productive engagement instead of conquest. Some see him as a traitor. Others are starting to listen. Torres paused. He keeps quoting you. Chen smiled slightly. People change when they're given the chance to change. Even Skarn War commanders, apparently. The meeting with Keth Voren 3 months ago had been strange and difficult. He had arrived aboard the Perseverance with a small honor guard, his scarred face unreadable. Chen had served tea, as she promised James she would, and the ancient Skarn warrior had held the delicate cup in hands that had ordered the death of millions. They had talked for hours, about war and peace, about power and mercy, about cycles that repeated across centuries, and the possibility of breaking them. Why did you spare me? Keth Voren had asked, the same question he had asked before, but deeper now. Truly, I have burned worlds. I have killed more than I can count. I deserve death by any measure of justice, perhaps, Chen had replied. But justice isn't the same as vengeance, and death is easy. It's final. It doesn't change anything. She had set down her own teacup and looked at him directly. Living is harder. Living means you have to face what you've done. It means you have to decide who you want to be tomorrow, even if yesterday was terrible. And you think I can change? After everything? I think everyone can change, Supreme Commander. The question is whether they will. She hadn't seen him since, but reports suggested he was trying. Not perfectly, not completely, but trying. And in a galaxy that had known only conquest and destruction for millennia, even the attempt was revolutionary. Torres interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving a communication request. It's from the Velith homeworld. Put it through. The view screen lit up with the face of a Velith elder, her wide eyes bright with warmth. Chen recognized her immediately, the grandmother who had clutched the children on Velaris Station, who had wept with relief when humanity offered rescue. Ambassador Chen, the elder said, I am Elder Keseth of the Velith Council. We wish to inform you personally that the vote has concluded. It was unanimous. What vote? The Velith people have decided to formally align ourselves with Earth, not as subjects or servants, but as partners, friends. Keseth's voice cracked slightly with emotion. For generations, we have been prey for the strong. We survived by being too small to notice, too weak to threaten. We had accepted this as our fate. She paused to compose herself. What you did at Velaris Station showed us something different. You had overwhelming power, yet you used it to protect instead of conquer. You had every reason to ignore us, yet you offered rescue without asking for anything in return. You showed us that strength and kindness can exist together. Chen felt something warm in her chest. This was why they had revealed themselves. This was the hope they had carried in secret for 2 centuries. The Velith are a gentle people, she said. The galaxy needs gentleness, perhaps, but now we have friends who will help us stay gentle without being victims. Keseth smiled. Our weavers have created something for you, a gift of gratitude. We hope you will accept it. The view screen showed an image of a tapestry, intricate and beautiful, depicting the Perseverance in its true form, the mighty dreadnought that had saved a station full of innocence. But around the ship, the Velith artists had woven something else, hands of every alien species, connected in a web that stretched across the stars. We call it the breaking of cycles, Keseth explained. It represents our hope for what the galaxy might become. Chen blinked back unexpected tears. It's beautiful. We will treasure it. After the communication ended, Torres looked at her captain with a questioning expression. More species are reaching out every day. The Velith, the Oridani archivists, 6 smaller peoples who never had a voice before. They all want partnership with Earth. Yes, and you're worried. Chen nodded slowly. We revealed ourselves to show the galaxy a better way. But power attracts attention. Some species will want to ally with us for protection. Others will see us as a threat to be eliminated. And others, she paused, others will try to become us, to build their own hidden weapons, to use our example as justification for their own ambitions. We can't control how others respond. No, we can only control what we do. Chen turned back to the viewport. That's always been true. Even before we reached the stars, even before we hid in the shadows to watch and learn. We can only be who we choose to be and hope that it matters. A soft chime indicated another incoming communication. This one was different, a frequency that humans rarely used, encrypted with protocols known only to a few. It's from the Watch, Torres said quietly. The Watch, the secret network of human vessels scattered across the galaxy, still hidden, still waiting. 11 more ships like the Perseverance, each disguised as something harmless, each carrying enough power to defeat fleets. Chen accepted the communication. A face appeared on the screen, Admiral Yuki Tanaka, the woman who had overseen humanity's hidden presence in the galaxy for the past 40 years. Ambassador, I've reviewed your reports from Velaris Station, and the Admiral's face was unreadable. The Council has been debating for 3 months. Some believe we revealed ourselves too soon. Others think we should have revealed more, shown the galaxy all our ships, all our capability, made it clear that humanity cannot be threatened. What do you believe, Admiral? Tanaka was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled, a rare expression on her severe face. I believe you did exactly what we always hoped to do. You showed strength and chose mercy. You demonstrated power and used it to protect. You gave the galaxy a reason to hope. She paused. The Council has decided. We will remain hidden for now, but we will support your diplomatic mission fully. More ships will be positioned to respond if needed. And Chen, yes, the vote wasn't close. Almost everyone agreed that what you did at Velaris Station was the right thing. Not just for humanity, but for everyone. Tanaka's smile faded into something more serious. We hid for 2 centuries because we weren't sure who we wanted to be. You helped us answer that question. The communication ended. Chen stood in silence, absorbing the weight of those words. James appeared at the entrance to the observation deck, looking uncertain whether to interrupt. Come in, Chen said. Ambassador, there's a small delegation requesting to see you. Representatives from several species. They say they want to discuss forming a new alliance not based on military power, but on shared values. He hesitated. They're calling it the Compassion Compact. Chen turned to face him fully. Who's leading this delegation? That's the strange part. It's a joint leadership. A Velith elder, an Oridani archivist, and James paused, clearly surprised by his own words, and a young Krithex commander. He claims he served under Vosrath, and that he wants to help build something different. Chen felt the warmth in her chest spread further. This was what they had hoped for. This was the dream that had sustained humanity through to centuries of hiding. Change, spreading outward like ripples in water. New alliances built on kindness instead of fear. A galaxy learning, slowly, that there was another way. "Tell them I'll meet with them in 1 hour," she said. "And James, prepare the good tea. I think this is going to be an important conversation." As James left to make arrangements, Chen returned to the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly into the darkness, countless worlds, countless species, countless possibilities. Humanity had hidden in the shadows for 200 years, watching and preparing. They had built weapons of incredible power and chosen to use them for protection instead of conquest. They had revealed themselves not with threats, but with mercy. And now, slowly, the galaxy was beginning to change. Not everyone would accept it. There would be resistance and violence and setbacks. The cycles that had dominated galactic history for millennia would not break easily. But they could break. That was what the battle at Velaris Station had proven. Power alone was not enough. Fear alone was not enough. Conquest alone was not enough. But strength combined with compassion, overwhelming force paired with deliberate mercy, the courage to stand for something better, even when easier paths beckoned, that might be enough. That might be everything. Chen smiled and turned away from the viewport. She had a meeting to prepare for, a compact to help build, and a galaxy to convince that the future could be different from the past. The Perseverance drifted through space in its garbage scow disguise, humble and harmless and hiding unimaginable power. Somewhere in the darkness, 11 more ships just like it kept their silent watch, not waiting to conquer, waiting to protect,